goes down, the stars come out, and all that counts is here and now. My universe will never be the same. I'm glad you came. You cast a spell on me. You hit me like the sky fell on me, and I decided you look well on me. So let's go somewhere no one else can see you and me. Turn the lights out now I'll take you by the hand you another drink. Drink it if you can you spend a little time to slip.
Good morning, grasshoppers.
Stay with me, I can make you glad you came. The sun goes down, the stars come out.
In today's instructional stream, we're looking at Tigran, Petrosian versus Ludek, Pachman, an amazingly instructional game for its ability to make such an innocuous opening look so easy. Honestly, I have been playing almost every first move since I began playing chess. I started just like everyone else with the standard e4 and e5, which I believe that everyone should master first and foremost before you move on to anything else. And in that manner that you will learn to either hold the center rather than giving up the center, and by holding the center you'll then have a fixed point that you might be able to attack. For example, should black not hold the center, a move like e5 with knight f6 would allow white to grab the center with e5. And there are other ways to attack the center, such as d5. However, this move also involves a tremendous loss of time by black, playing knight f6 and knight takes d5, or queen takes d5, knight c3, and the queen has to move away, either to d6, d8, or a5. In any event, giving up the center is not necessarily one of my preferred options. I prefer fighting for the center. There are many methods of fighting for the center. For example, you might fight for the center in an asymmetrical pattern with c5, or with the move c6 you may attack the center with d5, and similarly with the French defense, preparing d5, also attacking the square e4. So of the four methods of attacking the center, knight f6, d5, c6, or e6 preparing d5, I tend to prefer the Caro-Kann or the French, and after that then the Alekhine or the Scandinavian, almost in that order. However, there are many ways to attack the center with pieces. Tigran Petrosian plays knight f3 in this particular game, signaling his attempt to control the squares e5 and d4. Black, however, replies with c5, also fighting for the d4 square, and allowing white a transposition into perhaps the main lines of the Sicilian, where Ludek Pachman was a relatively assured opening theoretician. However, if you wish to get an advantage against an opening theoretician, or against anyone for that matter, you should never really give them what they want. Don't make your opponents happy. The concept of letting your opponents have fun, or having too much fun, isn't in the cards if you wish to play for an advantage, or if you wish to seek the optimal result, which might be a win. In this particular case, we just have to examine what we're up to, and Tigran Petrosian chooses g3, and after knight c6, again, e4 will lead to many fianchetto variations of a variety of Sicilians. Bishop to g2, g6, castles, bishop to g7, d3. Lately, in my GTO strategy, attempting to attack the center in the manner of any number of moves. Game theory optimal means that I'm hoping to play 200 opening moves with every possible first move. I haven't, however, experimented with either knight h3 or knight a3 on the first move. So now black has to choose how they're going to attack the center, and they choose perhaps one of the most solid replies. Now, this is not as solid, perhaps. I mean, if you are going to fight for the center, then there's absolutely nothing wrong with d5. There's no bishop to b5 fighting for the square, e5. And in reality, this would be perfectly, absolutely even after moves like e4, or knight on b to d2, or rook e1, or c3, or perhaps even c4, fighting for the long diagonal. In our game, however, Ludek Pachman chose a move that might lead to a French defense, closed variation with d3. And Petrosian does not hesitate to play the move e4. And in this particular position, black prepares his central advance with d5 with the help of the knight. Petrosian plays an extremely standard move here, rook to e1, preparing the pawn wedge that will divide the two sides of the board and ideally lead to an advantage. Now, the move castles was thought to be a strategic error. Many players of that day thought that black should immediately fight for the center with the d5. And that way, you'll prevent the use of the e4 square by white, as you'll see in the game. In this particular manner, black castles, and white continues to expand very, very surgically with the move e5. And with the move e5, we're pinpointing that square. Whether black plays d5 and we capture en passant, or as in the game when black plays d6, hoping to sneak by on the next move, white captures on d6.
Hey, Dad, I'm just going to make coffee. Anakin's in the tub.
And after queen takes d6, we can see that the queen is going to be bothered by a knight on either c4 or e4. Notice that knight a3 did something remarkably similar. Petrosian's move, however, throws up certain alarm bells for black, as black chooses to defend his queen immediately by retreating to c7. This, however, leads to further problems on the dark squares. Petrosian comes up with a rather ingenious plan of knight to b3, tagging the c5 pawn. And while black is probably best served by the move b6, this is a very difficult move to play, given the attack on the long diagonal with the rook at the end of that particular golden rainbow there. So Pachman moves his queen yet again. Oh, not yet. To b6. Instead, actually, Pachman seizes control of the center with the outposted knight on d4 and allows white to seize a small initiative with the move bishop to f4. This somewhat forces the queen to keep the c5 pawn protected, and in his best interest, it was probably good for him to capture on f3 first with check, or after the move bishop f4, perhaps retreat his queen to d8 and sacrifice the pawn. Instead, black chose to play queen to b6. And white's next move is extremely logical. After all, we don't want a direct confrontation on the knight on d4. We have greater space in a certain sense with our pieces and our bishops. Our two bishops, in fact, raking in the position. White outposts his knight on e5, giving black an opportunity, though, to remove white's best placed piece. This is one of the three questions you have to ask yourself before embarking on a course of action. What are the worst or best placed pieces? And in this particular example, it is difficult for black to give up his dark square bishop, as all of his dark squares around the king will be weak. So it's understandable that he didn't wish to do that. He could also fight for the center with a move like knight to d5. Although this runs into white's aforementioned plan of knight to c4, we're once again going to have to sack the c5 pawn and retreat our queen to a possibly passive square d8. However, instead, Ludek Pachman chose the move knight takes b3, attacking the rook, giving white a chance for a positional advantage. We're going to take an opportunity here to look for candidate moves for white. So by looking for candidate moves, you're looking for several moves. You're throwing 3 ideas out there. In this particular case, white does have 3 moves in this position. Good morning, Chescudo. Is the music too loud? How are you? I know it seems too loud for me, but I turned down the desktop audio just enough, hopefully. That's all I need to know. I will live with it.
I'm alright, how are you?
I am very okay. We're looking at Ludek Pachman defending as black against Tigran Petrosian. And we have candidate moves for white in this particular position. Black has just played the move knight takes b3. And I was explaining that there are 3 candidates for white. First off, you have to consider where are the weaknesses, what are the worst or best placed pieces, and whether or not we can take care of our opponent or take advantage of our opponent's previous move. If you're watching this on demand,
Said MCXCX I don't really like as a candidate.
Indeed. It's only a candidate. It's not really an option, as we'd like to keep our pawn structure united. As in, we'll have one entire pawn island here of 4 pawns after that. So let's consider for a moment the best move in the position, which was actually c4, a Zwischenzug, an in-between move. A Zwischenzug is a move which attacks something or creates a threat greater than the one that your opponent has just essayed upon you. For example, taking the rook. We don't have to capture right away, we can tag instead the queen. And the queen does have to find a square. Once again, retreating to d8 was probably best. Ludek Pachman places his queen on a very precarious square, queen to b5. And after a takes b3, white is already threatening to place his rook on a5, and the queen is going to experience further technical difficulties, as after queen to b4, bishop to d2 will cause black to lose material trying to save his queen. In fact, I believe the queen is lost, even if he blocks the bishop. Bishop takes c3, and with the bishop on c3, this queen will be completely surrounded. Therefore, black plays the move a5. And by playing the move a5, it creates yet another weakness in the position that has to be watched by 2 pieces. It is attacked twice. It is defended twice. Another weakness in the position besides the dark squares. And in this particular position, Petrosian brings home the point. A very weak queen side with a dark square color complex. One more time, we're looking for candidate moves for white. Oh, it's a part of the Lone Star State. Now, there are several good moves in this position, and it may be difficult to embark on a plan for which is best. Whether we probe one weakness or another weakness or take advantage of a rather poorly placed piece. By the way, I want to take my hat off to Lexington Lab Band and their amazing cover selection. Please subscribe to Lexington Lab Band on YouTube, as well as our channel if you haven't already. And perhaps even join the Discord if you haven't already. For future streams, I won't be announcing them always on Twitch or on Instagram, but in this particular case, yes. So this night, of course, most young players want to play the caveman chess move knight to d6, bothering the queen. We might also play the move queen to d2, targeting the a5 pawn, which is very difficult to defend. Black will have to choose between knight to c6, which could lead to further difficulties, after bishop to c7.
Even looking at B.
And even looking at bishop e5 to strip black of his dark square weaknesses. What move do you think is best in this position, Chescudo? Petrosian chose bishop to d6, and this knight has a very difficult time finding a defense. This pin creates insurmountable problems. For example, after the move rook to e8, the move bishop to c7 both targets the a5 pawn and threatens knight to d6. Very, very difficult, of course. So black actually chose to move bishop to f6. And white's next move, that's correct. I don't necessarily know that we have an advantage in creating a passed pawn on the queen side, but certainly a pawn is a pawn, as Grandmaster Mike Road has often said. Candidates for white. Candidate moves for white. Once again, please remember that we would like to determine where are the weaknesses, what are our opponent's best or worst placed pieces, and what is our opponent's big idea for the most part. In this particular position, black is on his back foot, as coined by a co-teacher of mine, E.G. Road, who appears on the stream. Rook e5, roar, knowing that it's Petrosian, eh? Rook e5 is a fascinating idea, though I don't think black has to capture it. No, the most natural move might be queen to d2, still targeting the pawn. And while it might appear that this bishop is a target, we can attack it immediately with the move queen f3, as Petrosian did. And after the move king to g7, like black is really precariously struggling here. Better was to sacrifice the exchange and return with knight to d5, and at least now he may be able to continue playing the game. However, after king to g7, there are further problems.
After qf, I guess black has to give up the exchange with nf and d.
Indeed. In this position, we're going to go for candidate moves for white as well. In fact, the seed of the idea is already in place. And this is a very well-known game, so many of you may have already seen the conclusion of this game in the Woodpecker Method or Improve Your Chess Tactics by Yakov Neistat. I recommend these books highly on Chessable.
I set the queen back up already.
Indeed. spoiler alert.
was just a dream. To try, cry, why, try.
We wouldn't be showing this game if it wasn't possible.
Said. Looks like Black has issues. Nice.
Indeed he does. So in this particular position, Petrosian played the move rook to e4. Other moves might include the move h4, intending exactly what you were talking about. Setting up the queen move that Chescudo is alluding to. The best move in the position, of course, is queen takes f6, and after king takes f6, bishop e5 check. Black is walking into a mating net. Yep. In fact, queen takes f6 right away is indeed the best move. Petrosian prepared this move with rook to e4, and Black ignored what was going on by not playing either knight to f5 or knight to d5. Instead, Black played rook to d8, allowing the aforementioned queen sacrifice and taking over the dark squares. Exactly. You're improving on Petrosian. But this requires a little bit of technique, as we need to search for candidate moves in this position.
Said. What did Petrosian miss with QXF immediately?
That's a very good question. I would have to refer to one of his many books. While we are doing 3 moves for white in this particular position.
Magic 79.
Thanks for following.
Have a certain smell. You've trust issues, not to mention. They say they can smell your intentions.
I'll consult the book Petrosian year by year, 1942 to 1962.
Think how did I get here sitting next to you? But after all I've said, please don't forget.
And final selection for candidates moves. Magic 79, thank you for following. I'm terribly sorry that the sound alerts don't seem to be working. You should have been heralded with at least 1 or 2.
You promise lunch. I say you do. No question.
Magic 79. This book also does not give it. In game number 104 of this particular book, they only give rook e4 without comment, rook d8, and queen takes f6 check, double exclamation mark. It's rather unfortunate, you'd think. But bishop to g7 indeed wraps up the black king, and the white and black really has very few moves to prevent the mate. They only defer the mate for the most part, because there are many ways to try to slow it down, such as knight f5, and after h4 check, knight takes h4, g takes h4. Pachman more or less gave up with the move e5. I'm not certain that he actually thought that he could escape, but after the move h4 check, bishop to f3 check, and bishop takes g4 check, the game ended in mate. All in all, this was a rather convincingly easy game by white. The world's greatest players make this game look so easy that we could all do it, even against the best of the best. Now, I don't know that I have time for another stream, but I am hoping to continue with another Petrosian game in just a moment. By the way, this game is only a game fragment in the book Petrosian year by year. And it's unfortunate that they don't include the first half of the game prior to the move number 18, rook e4. They probably could have started, if they were going to start with a position, they could have started with the position on move number 19, not showing that Petrosian missed a mate one move earlier. Thank you all for being here. Please subscribe to the YouTube if you can, and you'll get the full video that you've just watched there. In fact, if you go there now, you'll be able to catch it before it ends. Yeah. Well, not every opening suits every author's style either. Many authors just don't want to comment on certain openings. It's not necessarily the fault of a bad opening. Let's just say that I never play the Catalan, and I have positions to show when a player plays the Catalan. I do play the Catalan and have played the Catalan. I'm using that as an example of when a player might not play a certain type of opening, like the London, for example. If someone doesn't play the London and a resulting position from the London is worth showing to students, we might start with an instructive position rather than showing the opening, which we don't recommend. Needless to say, I hope everyone enjoyed this stream. We will be back with more, especially in the Petrosian Year by Year series and the most instructive games ever played.
Chess Kudo.
Said. Had a beautiful finish yesterday in a London.
Chess Kudo.
Said. Take
Yes.
care MCD.
Thank you, Chescudo.
Said. Bye.
I also didn't get to shout out Key and Chess earlier. And I'm also noticing that our chat box is missing from the end screen. Have a great day, everyone. I will be back shortly, if I can, with one more very significant Petrosian game, if it's included in its entirety in Petrosian Year by Year.
Said. Thank you for the sub.
Chess Kudo.
Said. What is shortly?
Chess Kudo.
Said. Like in a few hours or minutes.
Exactly. Thank you so much, everyone. Cheers and ciao.